It wasn't like I was doing it for a partner or
Mhm.
doing it it was for me to enjoy my body and my own sensuality for my pleasure.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Inner Archeology. I'm Emily.
Yes, and I'm Sarah, and this is a podcast where we love to dig into why we believe what we believe. And today I was thinking we could talk about pole dancing because there was
Yes.
a lot of pushing back on beliefs and re-examining beliefs that came with pole dancing. And we both pole
Yes.
dance, so we maybe talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that. When did you first start pole dancing?
Well, I feel like when you were living in Asheville, like 5, 6 years ago, um, we went to a class together, and that was like the first class I had ever taken. And
Yes.
it didn't really catch on till a year or two later, where I found a studio that I really loved, and I
Mhm.
started going regularly. But it was so impactful to me, um,
Mhm.
it, like that's kind of like where I started, and then I kind of stopped through COVID. My studio closed, didn't survive COVID, and that was really sad. And then I tried to dance like with the mask on, and it was just like, you might as well put like a wet washcloth over my face. I just
It's like
like couldn't do
waterboard
it.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was like. And so there was like a little bit of a gap, but now I'm kind of actually I just I don't even know if I've told you about this, but I tried out for a dance company
Yeah,
and
you
got
did.
accepted into the
Oh, you
company,
didn't
and
tell me
they
that
do a
part.
lot of pole. Yeah, so they offered me like a spot, and they'll do pole dancing and stuff too, and other sexy
Emily,
dancing.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We have our first meeting next week, and I'm really excited to have more consistent dancing and getting to dance with like a group of women,
Mm-hmm.
and build those relationships is going to be really fun. So there's like a lot of exciting things on the dance front that is like about to happen in my life. But and
Yes.
you've had a little bit more of a consistent journey, I feel like, than I have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you like what your thoughts were about pole before you pulled and like get into that, but maybe we can get into that later. Um so I started pole dancing in Asheville. I had a friend who opened a pole studio, and at the time I was really into mountain biking.
mm,
And I remember her telling me about opening a pole studio, and I was like, it's so funny because I don't know. I just remember thinking like, no, like I'm way too like hardcore for that. I mountain bike,
uh-huh,
bro. Like I like
yeah.
downhill mountain bike. Like pole dancing is like girly, and I've always kind of been a little bit of a tomboy actually. Growing up, like most of my friends were guys. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I valued my masculine side, overvalued, and tried to like lean into it more. And so pole dancing for me was almost like a representation of like something that was very what I considered feminine. And so I
Mhm.
was like, no thanks, definitely not. And then she convinced me to come to a class because she was like, you'll love it. Like, what are you doing? And I remember I went and I was like, oh shit, this is so hard. And the thing about me is like when something's really hard, I like want to do it more. Like
Right.
usually. And so when I saw that it was like something that took a lot of like time and energy to get decent, like no one just like hops on a pole and is good. It's just like not gonna
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm.
And so that was like actually really appealed to me. And I also immediately saw how much strength it took. Like after like one
Right.
class, I was like, oh wow. I thought I was super fit, but this is like a whole other layer of like being fit and flexible, like strong and
Mhm.
flexible, which I liked. And also it's painful. That's another thing that I feel like people don't necessarily realize, but like your skin, you're basically doing, you know, the like thing when you're a kid where you like twisted somebody's
The
arm
the
in different
brush
directions.
burn thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did it, you twisted it in different directions, and like that sensation, that's what it
Yeah.
feels like when the
Like
pole
on your whole body.
is like touching your skin, because you're literally like
Yeah.
holding on with your whole body weight on like you know, like a 2 by 2 like inch section of skin, and
Right.
so it
And your like inner
burns.
thigh, like,
Yeah,
or
you're
your
just
armpit.
yes, and so it burns, and but the thing is eventually it stops burning, so you have to get like you like toughen up to it. So all of that checked all of the boxes for me of like, oh, I went from like so judgy to like immediately obsessed.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so now I've been dancing, I think, for like 5 years. I've had some gaps in my like journey. Like just now recently, it's been like I took like 4 or 5 months off, and I've stopped getting like stressed out about those gaps because I think they're actually really important for me. But I've always had hobbies, and for some reason pole is the one like physical hobby that's like kept my attention for 5 years, most like last like 1 or 2 years. And I think it's also because it really pushes back on a lot of like societal beliefs around like
Mm.
your women's bodies,
Yes.
and like obviously there's like stripper culture, which is weird because I don't know, I remember looking at those big old high heels and being like, I will never wear those ever. But it wasn't even from a place like I used to be like, because I'm too like, and I'm like, I hate to like almost say this out loud because I'm like disgusted by myself now. But like one of the thoughts I'd have is I would be like, I'm too classy. And it's like, it's fucked up
Mhm.
because I didn't like think it was more like on myself. Like, I don't have any problem with strippers or anything like that. So it was like so much more on me. But I realized that when I was saying that, even if it was just in my head, I was like inherently judging people who did wear the high heels. And then I
Right.
slapped a pair on my feet, and I was like, "Oh fuck, this is so hard."
Yeah.
And immediately, like when I realized how hard it was, like those judgments just like dissipated, and I was like, "These are fucking fun." And like clacking them together, and how fun and like
Mhm.
ridiculous and like sassy that all feels. Hooked. And now my
Yeah.
favorite thing is heels. so
Yeah.
so I just like my whole journey with like all the judgments and all the like just realizing I was like brainwashed by like society into thinking it was like
Right.
trashy or like, and just realizing that I was preventing myself from having a lot of fun. That's all I was doing.
Mhm.
I was just holding
Mhm.
myself back with my beliefs, and I was so wrong. And it was like, and it's just so much more fun to be on the other side of it. And now when people are like, "Oh my god, gross! I can't believe you wear those heels," it like just doesn't even. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, I used to think that too.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
you're like,
I don't know. I love that pole is like a thing. Like I love that it's become more mainstream
mm-hmm,
as like this idea of like pushing back against the fucking patriarchy so that we
yeah,
like and expressing sensuality, and it is very female dominant, but not like exclusively by
mm-mm,
any stretch of the imagination, but it's like embracing this idea of sensual movement,
mm-hmm,
that's fucking okay, like that's
mm-hmm,
okay, and embracing the idea of like bodies, just all the bodies getting to
mm-hmm,
move our bodies. And for me, like, I don't know, when I think about it, I don't feel like I had much like many like thoughts about like pole dancing or about the heels or like existing thoughts. It was more of it was a really embodied like it was the first time in my life I'd ever really moved my body in a sensual way, like outside of the bedroom,
yeah,
was when I pole danced. Like,
mm-hmm,
because I danced in college, like I did stuff like that, but it was very performance oriented. It wasn't like it wasn't really sensual. I remember there was one piece I did that was kind of sensual, and that was very intense for me to do. Um, but like, and especially coming out of a very religious background, you know, especially women's bodies, we were very like shamed, like our bodies were
mm-hmm,
shameful, we
mm-hmm.
caused men to stumble and lust if we showed much skin. I would get in trouble for my clothes all the time. And so the idea of like wearing almost no clothes and moving, like undulating my body and moving it in a sensual, sexual way in a safe place was so appealing to me.
Yeah.
It was so appealing to me to kind of tap into that energy. And I, when I started dancing, my girls were pretty little. There was like there was like this really deep association between, um I kind of felt like after I had my girls, it's interesting because there were areas that I felt more in touch with my sensuality, but then there were other areas I felt a little disconnected, and I felt a little disconnected from my body just in this like post breastfeeding like
Mm-hmm.
stage that I was kind of like reorienting. I mean, because it's like you're pregnant and then you have like an infant, and then you're in this breastfeeding stage where you're still, your body still doesn't really feel like yours. And then after that, you reorient to this like new body that you kind of have that's different and it's changed in
Mm-hmm.
some ways. And I was kind of in that phase a little bit when pole dancing came into my life. It was like this way for me to like rediscover and like tap into like sensuality in my body and feeling like sexy or like enjoying myself just for me. And it
Yes.
wasn't like I was doing it for a partner or
Mm-hmm.
doing it for, it was for me to enjoy my body and my own sensuality for my pleasure. Was like, I don't think I'd ever done that
Mm-hmm.
ever before. It was always for somebody else, or it was not allowed to happen,
Right.
and it was not
Oh
appropriate.
my God.
So
Yeah.
pushing back against all of that, and I remember I wrote, I wish I had it, but I wrote a like poem about this
Oh.
because that's what I do. I wrote a poem, but it was like the imagery I used was like these almost like scales, like brittle, like fossilized scales on my spine that just kind of like broke off. And that's how it felt to me. Like I remember when I was first just practicing body waves, I was like, I don't know if my body's ever really moved like this. It feels so good. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels so right for my body to like move in this beautiful, fluid, like organic way that I've just never given myself permission to move like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so liberating. It was wonderful, but it was also terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the first few classes I took, I was so self conscious. I was self conscious about my body.
Mm-hmm.
I was self conscious about my
Mm-hmm.
movement. I was comparing myself against the other girls that were there. But it wasn't too long
Mm-hmm.
of just like realizing everybody fucking feels the same way I feel.
Yes.
Where I'm in good company, and realizing that we were only celebrating each other and there was no judgment. We were just like cheering each other on for fucking
Yes.
showing up, and like with our little booty shorts on, like, hell yes, girl, like do it, And it just
That.
was such a good environment, so liberating. Fuck, I love
Yes.
it.
I know. I love it too. And that's the thing that's like, ugh, like I got chills so many times while you were talking because that's the thing that I really came to love. And I taught like briefly very recently. And like one of my favorite fucking things to see people go through is because we would do it at the studio I was at, we would teach like a series.
Mhm.
So you would do like you would sign up with a group and it would be the same group for like like
Right,
sessions,
right,
and like the reason I love that is because you get comfortable so much more quickly with your like little pod of people.
right.
And
Familiar
to
people, yeah.
see people come in and like in the first class they're wearing like like basketball shorts, I don't know, you know what I mean, like
Sure.
longer shorts and like a t-shirt, and then like as like classes go on they get more and more comfortable, like their clothes get skimpier and skimpier, and
Yes.
it's just like, and the thing is like, and there's so many different types of bodies, like um it's not like for one type of body. And then I would always get them to record themselves during the
Mhm.
free dance after like their classes, because if you don't encourage like newbies to record themselves, I think they're nervous because I don't know, maybe it feels a little vain, maybe they feel like they're like not quite there yet, whatever. And they would record themselves and like look, and I'd be like, or I would record them sometimes when they would
Mhm.
like do something. I would be like, that was so amazing. Can we record that? And I would show it to them and they would be like, oh my God, I like didn't know I looked like that. And again, I just have to like reiterate that these are like all different kinds of bodies, right? Like this is
Mhm.
not just like, and so like even like bigger girls would be like, oh my God, I didn't know I could look like that. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
you look amazing.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm like crying.
I love you so
Because it's
much.
like, it's just like the best fucking feeling. And I just have seen so many people like heal in their relationships with their body through pole dancing.
Mhm.
Because, and we all like, we like come, like people come to this realization too, where they're like, you're scared at first because it's like often again like stereotyping here, it's not always women, but oftentimes it's a group of women, which like some people don't have like, I mean, have had like the best most supportive
Right.
relationships with women in their life, so like that's fucking scary. You're also dealing with like moving your body in this new sensual way that's been like you've probably experienced like guilt and shame around,
Mhm.
and you're choosing to do something that's insanely vulnerable, which is like be half naked in front of a group of women.
Mhm.
And then you like do the thing with your body and you surprise and shock yourself at like what you can physically do and how amazing you look. And not only that, because like all the other people are in like another, like they're also in a vulnerable place. You kind of all come together and like support each other. And then it
Yes.
becomes like this thing where like you hit a move you've been working on and trying to get, and everyone knows you've been trying to get that move and you get it, and like everyone's like yeah.
Yes.
Like it's like the joke that like the pole dancer like yell is a yes, like yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And it's so fucking amazing and feels so good, and you come out, you just like bond with those people in your class because you're all like half naked trying to do some really hard shit that like
Mhm.
hurts with your
Right.
body. And uh, I just love it so much. I
It's
love
been
pole
such a
dancing so much.
it's been really transformational. Like it in the giving yourself permission to be in your body and to enjoy being in your body, to challenge yourself, like feeling strong. When I like there was like a phase where I was dancing 3, 4 times a week. Like I was in this like and I was preparing for a performance and I felt so strong in my body. It felt so
Mm-hmm.
I never really I mean I hadn't had upper body strength like that in a minute. And so and it felt like powerful and yeah, and then I have like I've like come up I've like butted up against that like way of thinking that like that's inappropriate, that is like unacceptable, you are like misleading like all these girls that look up to you. And like I have had people like because I've shared a little bit here or there on my Instagram because I fucking love it and these dances are fun. And I have had a lot of response about of being like, oh my god, that looks so amazing, I want to try, like I need to find a pole studio in my city or whatever and I want to do it. And I'm like, yes, do it. Like there's that really good response that I get from a lot, actually a lot of women like my age, you know, a lot of like other women or other moms or whatever just being like, I want to do that too, which is kind of why I share it. Like it's for them.
Oh,
It's
a
for
hundred
it's
percent.
to give permission to maybe these other
Mm-hmm.
people that are thinking about it but like don't know if they can do it or feel like a little insecure. But because I have like shared myself up to the opposite, which is like I have some pretty intense criticism from people that has it's been like a bummer. But I've also just been kind of like, well, if I make you so uncomfortable, like you don't have to
You don't have
follow
to follow
me.
me.
Like,
It's
yeah, you
okay.
don't have to. And and like your discomfort is like yours. Like that's coming
Mm-hmm.
from you. That's not from me. Like, you know, and it's coming from you and whatever your beliefs are around what I am or am not allowed to do with my body. And so, but that's been good for me. I think that's been like really good to kind of put. And I remember like you I remember when you were like, because like your business was growing and you were like starting to have more of a following on social media, but you were like, but I want to like share my pole stuff, and am I can I do both, or do I have to just be like
Mm-hmm.
this business thing and I have to keep that separate? And I remember we talked about that a lot, and I was like, and I remember just being like, don't like divide yourself like that, like be like the full version of you. And I think that's been so good to see that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up sharing it on Instagram because that's a whole nother thing where I've heard people say things like, people putting their pole dancing on Instagram as like such an exhibitionist and like grasping for attention and like vanity and all these things. And like, first of all, so
So what?
I've
Exactly.
come to that place where I'm like, what's wrong with being an exhibitionist? Like, I mean, as long
Mhm.
as you're like, because the thing is with any social media, like you opt in, you like follow someone. So if
It's
you don't want to,
literally what social media is.
yeah.
Literally.
So it's your
All
choice.
of it. Your
You don't have to see
selfies,
it.
your yeah.
You do not have to see it. You do not have to participate. But also, I think it's one of those things where like once you start doing it and you have all the realizations that I've had and we've had, you actually really want to share it because I've it's had such a positive impact in my life. And
Mm,
I've seen firsthand how it's impacted other people's lives so positively. And I just like I think all this shame is bullshit. And also it's like kind of feeding it into like the idea of like again telling people what they can and cannot do with their bodies. And
mhm.
so I've always been like, I'm not gonna hide it. Yeah, no, I actually always pushed back against people would tell me like to separate it, and I always said no.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember there was a time where you were like, can you have a separate account so that you can share like your personal stuff? And I was like, I think I just like don't ever want to I don't like social media enough to have two fucking accounts. Like that's a
Mhm.
big part of it. And the other thing
Mhm.
is like I think we've done this weird thing in the world where we've compartmentalized ourselves and it's not really who we are. And it's like I think that's also why like you've seen me, I like kind of like fall in love with people who are like really weird and have like all their different things, like that ballerina farm girl where she's like a
Mhm.
ballerina, has like 7 babies and she's like Miss Utah. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. But like
Right. I'm into it.
I'm into it. And it's like I think we need more examples of that. And I think at the end of the day, it's like you get to a place in your life, or I hope people get to a place in your life where it's like you want to be okay with like if someone says that's not for me, like that's okay. Like I'm not for
Mm,
everyone.
mhm.
And if my like pole dancing makes you not want to engage with me in a professional way, like I'm so okay with that now. And but it was like a point where I like had to ask myself that question because I still get people who DM me and are like, you shouldn't share your pole stuff on your business page. And I'm like, this isn't a business page. This is
Yeah.
just like an Instagram account that I post when I feel like posting. You don't have to follow me. That's why like my YouTube is all about copywriting. You want to go over there, go over there. But like it's the one area where I can just like post when I feel like it and what's important to me at the time, and that's changing and growing. And also that's why I love this podcast because it's like an area where I don't have to like where we don't pigeonhole ourselves into like this is the one conversation that we're gonna have. Like if we wanted to change it and make it the sex talk again, like we can do
Yeah.
that, you know?
Totally.
And like it's just all about giving yourself fucking permission, man. Like
Mhm.
your own beliefs about things are the things that hold you back and the fear of like the consequences of those. And I don't know. I don't I just think that pole is such a beautiful safe space. And I think
Mm.
um when people like judge it, it's because they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Like it's like
Yeah.
you just don't know. And I used to be one of those people, which is why like
Mhm.
it doesn't offend me or upset me when people have their judgments about it. I'm like, I had judgments about it too. I totally get it. Like you just don't know what
Mhm.
you're talking about. It's fine. Like
Yeah.
it's like
That's so
and it
funny.
and I also think I think I really want to go back to the thing you said about the like making a safe space to explore your sensuality that isn't where you're like actually having sex
Mhm.
because there aren't a lot of places where that exists.
Right.
Actually, like, you
Like
know,
what?
yeah.
Where? What? Tell me. I don't know. Like I don't. That's why it was so unique and special. I was like, "Oh my god, like having pleasure, a sensual pleasure in my own body that's just for me." Like and it's not having sex or masturbating. Like
Right.
and it's really nice.
It's so nice. And I think yeah, it's like highlighted that for me how that doesn't really exist. And I love like we do some like kind of like boudoir-ish shoots, like photo shoots,
Mhm.
you know, and this is
Mhm.
like your thing.
Yeah.
I like love getting my like girlfriends into it. I'm like, Emily is so good. Because one of the things you do is you make whoever you're taking pictures of, no matter who they are or what their body looks like, you're so good at making them feel amazing. And it's such
Hmm.
a gift. And like the feeling that they get when they like look at the photo you've taken of them, especially because for a lot of people they feel all nervous and uncomfortable at first because it's like very vulnerable of them.
Yeah, they're like in lingerie. This is not, they might not have ever had pictures taken of them like that before. Yeah.
And then they look at what you've like how you like you see them and they're like, "Oh my god, I
I
look like
know. There, like, I
this."
don't know how many times I've had people, because I just find myself doing, it's just a funny thing. I just find myself taking like I have so many sexy pictures of like various humans on like my camera roll. It's so funny. But I like just I found myself doing this, and the reaction of like, I can't believe that's me. I'm so fucking hot. I'm just like, yes, like getting to like have people see like what I see in them, instead of just getting blocked at all your own like self-deprecating criticisms that you see in yourself every time you look in the mirror, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important to be able to have, or can be so transformational, so healing to your relationship with your body, to be able to have moments like that where you're like tapping into that sensual in safe places,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
with somebody who gets it, I guess, you know.
I just have to say this is like I think one of your like biggest gifts. You're like so good at that. And it's like it's funny because my friends in LA now are like, "When's Emily coming? Can we do another photo shoot?"
I love it. It's so
Because we
fun. And
like
I
make a whole
recently
day
just,
of it. It'll be like, we
it's
invite
the
5 people
best.
over and we just like like have all these different outfits and try each other's outfits on. And it used to make me so uncomfortable to take pictures like that. And now I'm just like, this is like how it's supposed to be.
It's
Like
like the thing that we do.
our bodies
I
are
love it
so
so much.
incredible and such an incredible, beautiful gift. And we've like created so much shame and guilt around them. And it's so unfortunate because I really believe like I really believe that if there's a God, that he would like want you to be like really proud of the thing that he like the vessel that he like put you in.
Enjoying your body.
I
Yeah.
really believe that. Like why? Why would there ever be shame around that? I don't it's just anyway, I love that. I love the photo shoots that we
Yeah.
do. It's such a fucking gift and it's very like much similar to the gift that I experience and I know other people experience with pole. Um
Yeah. Yeah. I like that connection, that like giving yourself permission to be sensual. I love it.
and to be proud of your
Um,
body. I think that's another thing. I think that we have judgments around being like I'm feeling myself, I'm feeling good, and I'm actually really glad that like as a culture we're like pushing back on that. When people are like being like I'm
mm,
feeling myself, like that's a like phrase now. Whereas I think like even not that long ago, like 10 years ago or so, people like if you were feeling yourself, people would be like, "Wow, you're vain.
mm,
You're like
mm,
self-absorbed." You know what I mean? And it's
mm-hmm.
like I think we're supposed to be feeling ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it's this whole idea of self-love, like really truly like enjoying yourself and appreciating yourself, respecting yourself, all the stuff, you know, that like there was no languaging around that when we were teenagers, none of that. And I think it's so, and honestly, like your question of like why is there this shame? Like, well, first of all, like that is a whole, that it could be like a whole entire conversation in itself, but a sexually liberated woman is one of the most powerful forces to be reckoned with on the planet.
Mhm.
Like I truly believe that. And I think that the shame is there as a form of
A
control. Like
hundred
it's
percent.
very intentional, right? And so anytime that a woman like wears the outfit that makes her feel herself, or takes the pole class, or takes a sexy photo with her girlfriends or whatever, it's like claiming ground back. And I think it is really important in like the grand scheme of things
I so
for
agree.
that to be happening. And it's funny because like I'm a mom. My girls love coming to my pole classes. They're like, "Mom, can we go?" Because they think it's like so amazing. And they've, you know, because they've seen some of my videos and they've come to a few of my classes before. And And the feeling I get from them when they're like observing that is that they're like proud of me. They're like, that's my
Mm.
mom. Like, look at how cool my mom is. And they've actually talked about it with their friends. And I was dying laughing. One day Evie came home and she was like talking about that one of her friends was asking Evie if I was a stripper. And then I had to kind of like explain like that this is like more of like a casual thing, and also explain that some people like that's their profession and they make money doing that,
Mhm. And
and
that's
that's like really
okay.
powerful and wonderful.
Mhm.
Mine is more of a hobby. So no, I'm not like a stripper in that sense. Mine is more of a hobby, but it's just so funny that it's a conversation with my daughters. And I don't know, like I did not experience like that kind of like sensual like groundedness or like just acceptance from my mother. Like I didn't have any of that. Like we were very much in this like religious bubble where that was all no. Like, and so I'm just like excited for my daughters to get to like grow up with a mom who like likes being in her body and is like okay celebrating that. I
Mhm.
am just like,
Mm.
I don't know. I'm just so excited to see like them grow up, or how that'll like manifest in their relationship with their body, because I know, and I knew early on, I was like I'm giving them the example of like what their relationship with their bodies
Mhm.
and their sensuality and all that is going to be, and I want to make sure I'm handing them something that's like good for them. So,
Yes.
and I know there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with me on
Who
this,
cares? They've never taken a pole class. That's the thing. I'm like, if you
yeah.
have judgments and you haven't taken a pole class, like, that's why. Well, I remember I was actually scared when I first started pole dancing to tell my parents about it. And at first, there was like some jokes made because that's what we do in my family when we're uncomfortable. And then
Hmm.
very quickly, once they saw like what, some of the like top pole dancers are doing, they were like, "Oh, damn. Like this isn't like there's just like when you see like some of the best pole dancers in the world, you're like, "Holy shit." Like that is just so powerful. There's just like no denying it.
Yeah.
Um
Hmm.
and I'll kind of like add a little quick fun story about the time my dad got on my pole. We were I was like Dad, you got to like cuz it's a tension pole and it was in my apartment at the time
Hmm.
and it was a tension pole. I was like, "Dad, you got to like you're a heavy dude. You're a big dude. And you got to like make sure that you go like you have to pull on the pole so that your weight is like up and down. You can't go like horizontal at the pole."
Right,
But
right.
whenever anybody like gets on a pole for the first time, they just want to spin as fast as they can. And so I have a video of it, but my dad like literally like runs and jumps onto the pole to like try and get a big old spin, rips it
Uh-huh.
off the ceiling and like puts a hole in the wall and like falls down and we're all like screaming
Oh
and
my
laughing and he
gosh.
is just like, "Oh, sorry."
I
It was just
love
like one
that.
of
I
my
remember that. I remember
favorite,
that whole.
favorite pole moments is my dad trying pole for like the first time and like ripping it out of the
Mhm.
ceiling and smashing a hole in the wall. Anyway.
Yeah. I do feel like I want to just say this because I think it needs to be said. But you and I and all of us girls that are taking pole classes would never be here being able to do it if it was not for sex workers. And it's
Oh,
like
fuck yeah. I'm so glad you said that.
because of these because of sex workers who
Mm-hmm.
have been so like attacked and ridiculed by society.
Mm-hmm.
They have ushered in something that has been incredibly healing, and I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
worth acknowledging, because the judgment and
I'm
the
so glad you
prejudice that
said
is
this.
there is
Mm-hmm.
because of the hatred towards sex workers, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's like a big reason of why it's there and why people are like, oh, pole dancing, like that's trashy, because that is like the consciousness around that, and it's not okay. And that's why I like that pole dancing is becoming more mainstream, but I think it's important to just acknowledge like
I'm so glad you
where
said
it's
that.
come from. Yeah.
And also, that's why I think it was so confusing and weird for me to realize the judgments I had, and like, even admitting them out loud now, is because I don't like, if you I mean, like, I didn't like I didn't have a problem with like sex workers or strippers, like, and I considered myself like open-minded and supportive of like that world. And so it was very surprising to see that I had my own judgments
The
that were
stuff
just like,
getting kicked out.
yeah,
Yeah.
that were just like, that existed, because that is the like connotation, and I was like, it's just like a form of conditioning, really, from
Yes.
like
Yes.
society and the conversation around it. And I had my own judgments that were not in alignment with my values, right? And I was like, wow, what the fuck, Sarah? Like, this doesn't line up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm so glad you said that. Would have been like an incomplete conversation without that, because it's
Yeah.
100% true. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's just like I like have like that gratitude because I
so
mean just
much
like
gratitude.
there's so much beauty and like amazing things that have come from oppressed minorities in just whether it's in profession or in like gender or race. It's just there's so much beauty that we get to enjoy every day that comes from pain, like, and comes
Mm-hmm.
from like oppression. And it's just like, yeah, acknowledging that, but and also like there is something about like making it okay, making it accessible, making pushing back on the conditioning and the thought processes. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still in it. Like every time I post something, I know I'm gonna get a little like
Your eye.
feedback.
You were like,
I twitch. It's gonna happen. And but I'm just kind of like
it's
it's
worth
worth it
it.
to me because if it gives, like I said earlier, if it gives somebody permission to like enjoy their bodies and enjoy themselves, and especially, I don't know, for me being like a mom, like having had pushed two babies out of my body, and like, I don't know, I feel like that there's so many moms like get so disconnected from their body. It was just such a wonderful
Mm.
way for me to like reconnect to enjoying my own body instead
Mm-hmm.
of it just being like a food station or a baby making
A
station or
food
pleasure
station.
station. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
love this. I'm glad we talked about this.
Yes.
Go find your local pole studio. Give it a shot. Like it's
Yeah.
like
Know
it's
that
scary,
everyone feels weird and
but
uncomfortable at first.
everybody feels the way that you feel. Yeah.
It's true. Oh, I love that.
I love that. I love you. Yay.
Hmm. Love you. Bye.
Okay, okay, awkwardly exiting the podcast. Bye.